Former Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith is sitting for a closed-door deposition with House Republicans this hour. House Judiciary Committee members digging into his investigations into President Trump. Smith arrived on Capitol Hill moments ago, as you see here, and this deposition is part of an ongoing investigation into criminal inquiries of President Trump during the Biden administration. Smith, as you'll remember, led the investigations into Mr. Trump's efforts to overturn his 2020 presidential election and the classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida.
So Jack Smith is finally sitting down with the House Republicans today for this closed-door deposition. And let me tell you, Donald Trump should be absolutely shaking in his golden elevators right now because the legal walls aren't just closing in anymore. They are basically a high-speed hydraulic press at this point. We are literally watching the architect of the most pathetic, most dangerous attempt to steal an election in American history finally have to face the music, or at least the opening act of the music, while the MAGA crowd loses their collective minds trying to spin this as some kind of deep state hit job. It's not a hit job, folks. It's called the rule of law, something Trump seems to think is a suggestion rather than a requirement. Jack Smith walked onto Capitol Hill today, and you just know he's got receipts that would make a CVS clerk blush, because this isn't some he said she said playground dispute. This is about the survival of the Republic, and Smith is sitting there in that room, probably looking at these House Republicans, who are basically acting as Trump's unpaid interns and legal defense team, and he's telling them exactly how the insurrectionist-in-chief tried to light the Constitution on fire just because his ego couldn't handle a loss. If you're tired of the corporate media sugarcoating this literal treason and you want the raw truth, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel right now, and leave a heart in the comments to show you actually care about saving our democracy. Can we just stop for a second and talk about the absolute, sheer, unadulterated audacity of the argument that a president is basically a king who can just order hits on political rivals and get away with it? Because that is exactly what Trump's lawyers actually argued in front of a judge, and the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals looked at them like they had three heads and said, "No, actually, that is not even remotely how America works, buddy." They literally had to write down in a formal legal ruling that Citizen Trump is just a guy now, not some untouchable deity who can organize fake electors and pressure state officials like he's some kind of mob boss in a cheap, oversized suit. It is honestly exhausting that we even have to have this conversation in 2026. But here we are, watching the courts finally do their jobs and remind everyone that the Oval Office is not a get-out-of-jail-free card for life. They rejected his sweeping claims of blanket immunity because guess what? Trying to overturn a free and fair election is not an official act. It is a crime, plain and simple, and no amount of red hats or unhinged Truth Social rants at 3:00 a.m. is going to change the fact that the legal architecture is now firmly set in stone to hold him accountable the very second he loses that temporary presidential shield he is hiding behind like a total coward. Is he a president or a king? The court said he's a citizen, and that is the most beautiful thing I've heard all year, honestly. And let's really get into the meat of what Jack Smith actually said in that 255-page transcript, because this is the part that should have every single person in Trump's inner circle looking for a lawyer and a one-way ticket to a country without an extradition treaty. Smith went on the record, the actual official record, and stated that his team gathered evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you even understand how high that bar is? That is not, "we have a hunch," or "it looks pretty bad." That is the "send him to the big house" standard that federal prosecutors do not just throw around unless they have the literal smoking gun, the security footage, and the person's orange-tinted fingerprints all over the trigger. He is telling Congress that they had the goods to prove Trump led a criminal conspiracy to reverse the 2020 election results, which is just a professional way of saying he tried to stage a coup because he's a sore loser who couldn't accept that the American people fired him. It is absolutely explosive, yet you will still have the talking heads on the other side trying to tell you this is all just politics, when a literal special counsel is saying he can prove treason in a court of law. It makes you wonder what else is in those pages that they are so desperate to keep quiet, doesn't it? Why are they so scared of the truth coming out if everything was perfect and legal? We know why. They know we know why. It's all a scam. Jack Smith did not stutter when he told them that the January 6th attack on the Capitol literally does not happen without Donald Trump. It is a direct line, people. A straight shot from the lies to the violence. He caused it, he exploited it, and he knew exactly what was going to happen when he pointed that angry mob at the heart of our democracy and told them to fight like hell, or they wouldn't have a country anymore. This wasn't some spontaneous gathering of peaceful tourists like the GOP is trying to gaslight you into believing. It was the final, desperate, violent act of a man who realized his fake elector scheme was falling apart and decided to see if a riot could finish the job for him. Smith is out here calling Trump the most culpable and most responsible person in the entire conspiracy, which is basically legal speak for he's the guy who started the fire and then blocked the firemen from putting it out. And the most devastating part? Smith's case isn't even built on liberal bias or whatever the MAGA crowd is whining about today. It's built on the testimony of Republicans. Actual Republicans who were in the room, who saw the madness with their own eyes, and who finally decided that their oath to the country mattered more than their loyalty to a guy who wouldn't even pay their legal fees if they got caught. It is just so incredibly pathetic when you really stop and think about the scale of the betrayal here. So now we are stuck in this weird, dystopian, Twilight Zone reality where the only thing standing between the most documented criminal in presidential history and a prison cell is the fact that he managed to claw his way back into the White House. The Department of Justice has this self-imposed policy about not prosecuting sitting presidents, which is basically just a pause button on justice. But let's be very, very clear. The evidence has not gone anywhere. It hasn't evaporated, and it hasn't been forgotten. It is sitting there, documented, preserved, and ready to be activated the very moment that presidential protection expires. And Trump knows it, which is why he's acting like a cornered, desperate animal every single day he's in office. He is living under a massive, dark cloud of potential criminal liability that could turn into a Category 5 thunderstorm the second he is no longer useful to the people currently shielding him from the consequences of his own actions. It is a complete and total mockery of the idea that no one is above the law when we are literally watching someone use the highest office in the land as a human shield to hide from the crimes they committed to get there in the first place. Can you even imagine any other person in this country getting away with this? If you or I tried to organize a fake elector scheme for a local PTA election, we would be under the jail before the sun went down. But for Trump, it's just another Tuesday. It's honestly exhausting, it's infuriating, and it's why we have to keep screaming about it until something actually changes. So, let's talk about that Supreme Court ruling, because the MAGA spin machine is out here acting like it's a total get-out-of-jail-free card. But if you actually read the thing, which I know most of those guys haven't because it doesn't have enough pictures or mentions of crowd sizes, it's actually much narrower than they want you to believe. They said official acts get protection. But do you really think pressuring a Secretary of State to find exactly 11,780 votes is a presidential duty? Is that in the job description? Somewhere between the State of the Union and pardoning a turkey? Does it say, must attempt to subvert the will of the voters in a swing state? No, it absolutely does not. The lower courts are already looking at this and saying that organizing fake electors is about as official as a mob hit. It's an unofficial, private, desperate power grab by a guy who was terrified of becoming a loser, and no amount of high court hand-wringing is going to change the fact that criminal conduct is still criminal conduct, even if you're wearing the presidential seal while you do it. It's just a delay tactic, people. A very expensive, very dangerous delay tactic that is dragging the entire country through the mud just so one man doesn't have to face a jury of his peers. Why are we even entertaining this idea that he gets a special set of rules? And speaking of those fake electors, can we just pause and appreciate the sheer comic book villain level of stupidity it takes to think you can just print out some fake certificates, have a bunch of sycophants sign them in a basement, and then just, what? Hope nobody notices? Jack Smith's transcript makes it clear that this wasn't just some wacky idea from Rudy Giuliani after one too many glasses of scotch. It was a coordinated, multi-state criminal enterprise designed to disenfranchise millions of American voters. They were literally trying to swap out the real results for a fantasy version where Trump wins, and they did it with the full knowledge and direction of the man himself. It is the definition of a conspiracy, It is the textbook example of an attempt to overthrow the government from the inside. And yet, we have Republican congressmen sitting in that room today trying to grill Jack Smith about his motives instead of asking why their leader was trying to turn the United States into a banana republic. It's disgusting. It is genuinely, deeply disgusting to watch these people pretend to be patriots while they defend the most un-American thing to ever happen in our lifetimes. How do they even look at themselves in the mirror? How do they sleep? Then you've got the Mar-a-Lago documents case, which is just, come on. We're talking about highly classified national security secrets stored in a bathroom next to a gold-plated toilet. A bathroom where anyone with a club membership could have just wandered in and seen our nuclear secrets or the names of our undercover assets while they were looking for more towels. Jack Smith laid it out. Trump didn't just forget he had them. He willfully kept them. He hid them from his own lawyers. He moved them around to dodge the FBI. And he basically treated some of the most sensitive information in the world like his personal scrapbooks. If you or I did that, we wouldn't be having a closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill. We'd be in a federal holding cell with no windows and a very long sentence ahead of us. But because it's Trump, we have to endure years of legal gymnastics and special master nonsense while the security of our allies and our troops is literally left sitting in a ballroom where people are doing the Macarena 3 feet away. It's a joke. It's a dangerous, lethal joke. And the fact that it was shut down just because he won an election is a stain on the American justice system that might never wash out. It is absolutely infuriating to see this level of privilege. The GOP members of the House Judiciary Committee are in there right now, and you just know they aren't looking for facts. They are looking for sound bites. They are looking for anything they can clip and post to Twitter to show that they are fighting for the boss. They don't care that Jack Smith found evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. They don't care that January 6th wouldn't have happened without Trump's direct incitement. They only care about protecting their own power and staying on the right side of the MAGA base, even if it means burning down the Department of Justice to do it. It is so transparently partisan and so incredibly hypocritical from the Law and Order Party. Where is the law? Where is the order? When it's a Democrat, they want 47 different investigations into a laptop or a tan suit. But when it's their guy caught red-handed with a criminal conspiracy to end American democracy, suddenly it's a witch hunt, and the prosecutors are the real criminals. It makes my head spin. The level of cognitive dissonance required to maintain this narrative is honestly impressive, in a terrifying, we're all doomed kind of way. Are they even listening to the answers Smith is giving? Or are they too busy drafting their next fundraising email about how the radical left is coming for your gas stove? This whole situation just creates this massive, suffocating cloud over everything this administration does. How can you have a legitimate presidency when the guy sitting in the Oval Office is basically a defendant out on bail who just happened to get a 4-year extension? Every policy decision, every international negotiation, every judicial appointment, it's all tainted by the knowledge that this man is only there because he managed to outrun the law for one more cycle. Jack Smith is on the record saying he has the goods. The courts have said the prosecution is legally valid, and the only thing missing is the date on the calendar. Trump knows this. He feels it. You can see it in every unhinged all-caps rant he posts. He isn't running the country. He's running from his own shadow. He is trying to dismantle the very system that is trying to hold him accountable, and it's a race against time to see if he can break the gears of justice before they finally catch up to him. It is a completely unprecedented, high-stakes game of legal chicken, and the future of the entire country is the prize. Is this what we want? A president who spends more time talking to his defense attorneys than his cabinet? A leader who views the Constitution as an obstacle to be avoided? It's a nightmare. It is a literal, living nightmare. Look, we're staring down the barrel of the 2026 midterms, and that is why this deposition today is so incredibly high stakes, even if the Republicans are trying to treat it like a boring book club meeting. If we take back the House, and believe me, the energy is there, all this evidence Jack Smith has meticulously gathered doesn't just sit on a shelf gathering dust. It becomes the roadmap. It becomes the foundation for actual, real-world accountability that isn't just a policy or a norm. We are talking about a Congress that could actually use these findings to stop the bleeding. Right now, the GOP is just a human wall of sycophants trying to block the view of the crime scene, but walls can be torn down by voters. The composition of Congress is the only thing keeping those 255 pages of guilty beyond a reasonable doubt from becoming a literal death sentence for his political career. So, are we going to let them keep the shield up, or are we going to finish what Jack Smith started? That's the real question, isn't it? And let's not forget the one thing that keeps Donald Trump up at night, probably more than the lack of Diet Coke on the campaign trail: state-level prosecutions. Because guess what? The pardon power only goes so far. He can try to pardon himself for federal crimes. He can have some MAGA crony in the DOJ try to bury the files, but he cannot touch what is happening in the states. Jurisdictions like Georgia, where the evidence of him pressuring officials is literally caught on tape for the whole world to hear. He doesn't control the governors there. He doesn't control the state prosecutors who aren't bound by these sitting president DOJ memos. This creates a legal pincer move that is slowly, surely closing in. Even if he hides in the White House for 4 years, those state charges are waiting like a debt collector who never forgets and never stops calling. It's the ultimate check on his power, a reminder that the United States is actually a union of states, not a kingdom ruled by one guy's fragile ego and a Twitter account. It's honestly the only thing that gives me a shred of hope these days, knowing there are places where his reach just doesn't extend. But seriously, think about the precedent this sets if we just let it slide. If a president can literally orchestrate a coup, organize fake electors, steal classified documents, and then just win an election to make it all go away, then we don't have a democracy anymore. We have a blueprint for every future wannabe dictator to follow. Just break the law, stay in power, and you're golden. That is the most dangerous lesson we could ever teach the next generation. The court rulings rejecting his immunity were meant to prevent this exact scenario, to say that the law is a constant, not a variable that changes based on who's in the Oval Office. If we lose that, we lose everything. We're essentially saying that as long as you can get enough people to vote for you, you can commit any crime you want. It's a recipe for total authoritarianism, and it is exactly what Jack Smith is trying to fight against in that room today. It's not just about one man, it's about the soul of the country and whether we actually believe the words written in the Constitution or if they're just fancy wallpaper for a reality TV set. It's terrifying, it really is. Jack Smith didn't just walk into that room with theories, he walked in with a mountain of evidence that he says meets the highest standard in our legal system, beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the standard that sends people to death row, for God's sake. And he's saying he has it on the President of the United States. He's saying the crimes were committed for Trump's benefit, by Trump's direction, and that the violence of January 6th is his and his alone. That is a heavy, heavy thing to say on the record. It means if we were in a normal country, a country where the law actually applied to everyone, he would be in a courtroom right now, not a campaign rally. We have the receipts. We have the testimony from his own party members calling it an attempt to overthrow the government, and we have the court ruling saying he can be prosecuted. It is all right there. It's like we're watching a movie where the killer is caught on camera, but the police are told they have to wait 4 years before they can make an arrest. The frustration is palpable. You can feel it in the air. How much longer are we supposed to wait for the reckoning that's been promised for years? So here we are, watching the clock tick, watching the GOP dance around the truth, and watching Jack Smith calmly explain to a room full of people who don't want to hear it that the guy they're protecting is a criminal. It's a complete circus, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What happens next? Does the DOJ policy hold forever? Does a state court finally pull the trigger? Or do we just drift further into this weird, lawless gray zone where the facts don't matter as long as you're loud enough? There's no easy answer here, and honestly, that's the most frustrating part of it all. We're just waiting for a system that was never designed for this to somehow fix itself. It's like trying to repair a plane while it's crashing into a mountain, and the pilot is the one who cut the engines in the first place. We'll see what else comes out of this deposition, but don't expect a neat bow on this story anytime soon. It's going to be messy, it's going to be loud, and it's going to get a lot worse before it ever gets better. If it ever gets better at all, we're just living in the fallout of a disaster that is still happening in real time.